It's Shana Meyerson with YogaAthletica in Los Angeles, California, here today to teach you what I think is one of the most comprehensive and most overlooked poses in yoga, triangle pose, which in reality is not called triangle pose at all. It's actually called Utthita Trikonasana, which means extended triangle pose. Why is that important? Because so many people forget about the extension. Let's not, shall we? To start, you want a pretty wide stance on this one. Now, there are varying opinions on how long a triangle stance should be. For me, I've taken it approximately a full warrior length, which means if my arms go straight out to the sides, my hands should be more or less over my ankles, okay? Now, some people prefer to take it closer together. That's okay. I find that wider apart gives me a better stretch. And because this is an amazing stretch, that's the way I'm going to teach it today. With your right foot, turn it so that it's facing all the way forward, okay? But here's the thing. This back foot is not facing sideways. It's actually facing at a very strong angle forward as well. So we're talking about like maybe 30 degrees, maybe 45 from facing the front of the mat. And this is a heel to heel alignment. What does that mean? It means that if I draw a straight line from the front of my mat to the back of my mat, the line that starts at one heel will end at the other heel. Now, as I stand here in this very position and my back foot is all the way flat, both legs are straight, you notice something about my hips. They're out of whack. That's going to happen when you have a long stance, but the interesting thing is this is a big part of the Utthita, the extended part of this pose. So, if my arms are out to the sides, I want to shift my right hip backwards in space. Now, what happened to my left hip when I did that? Did it just go backwards? No, it actually goes up in space, right? So it's tilting my hips. I want to think about my spine basically coming straight out of this line. So I go low and I stretch long. Okay, so imagine you have a line that goes from your hip to your arm, and you're going to extend that all the way out. At this point, this arm is sort of irrelevant, so I'm just going to keep it here. You could take it up if you want to. Once I extend, I maintain that extension and take my hand to the outside of my leg. Now, if you can't reach that far, you put a block under your hand, okay? And you could put that block any height. But the hand is not on the inside. Why? Because when my hand is on the inside, I'm folding forward. We don't want this in a triangle. A triangle is one of those like up against an imaginary wall poses. So if I lean backwards, but my hand is pulling me forward, that's counterproductive. Now, there are versions where you actually hold onto your big toe like such, but there's never a version where you press into your leg. Why? Because it encourages hyperextension and it's going to give you a great opportunity to tear something in your leg. So, there are versions grabbing onto your big toe, but I recommend hand on the outside of your leg, and you want it in such a place where it's underneath your shoulder. Okay, not way forward, not way back. Why is this? The closer it is to vertical, the easier it's going to hit the floor. Now, I've talked about this before, and I don't need to get way into it now because I don't think most people understand what I'm saying anyway when I say it, but I'll say it. Vertical lines hit the floor faster than diagonal lines. So the more straight up and down your arm is, the easier it's going to hit the floor. Okay, so your hand is either on the floor or on a block. Okay, but I would rather see you on your fingertips than on a block, okay? Because really, the goal is not really to be pressing down hard into that hand, okay? Because we're going to be really lifting out of that. So with my hand down, it should feel like this hip, my right hip, is pulling back towards the back of the mat, and at the same time, it's going to sort of pull it in. Now notice that my hips in this scenario are not perfectly stacked. The rotation of this thigh backwards is going to pull this hip a little forward. That's okay. It's part of the game. Now, as I mentioned, this is an up against an imaginary wall pose. So right now, naturally, my shoulder is sort of in front of my other shoulder. But I need to rotate my chest so that instead, my shoulders are stacked. Now, if you need help with this, what you can actually do is forget about the imaginary wall and use a real wall. Now, this is going to limit you in certain ways, so I'm not going to necessarily say this is like the long-term way of practicing, but if you want to get the feeling of being up against the wall, you reach, and literally go against the wall, okay? Now, what happens is that in the real pose, you can continue to open your chest more, which is going to be inhibited by actually being at the wall. So that's not like the be-all and end-all, but I do want you to at least understand how you can be against the wall in this pose. Okay, so I've got my nice wide stance, right? And I'm going to go heel to heel. This foot goes forward, this foot, and a very strong rotation in. That hip lifted. This hip pulls back. I reach against it, reach. There's my Utthita, and hand comes down under my shoulder. As I mentioned, my arm comes up into the air. Now, what happens when people are here is you see how like the top ribs are sort of like rainbowy, and my bottom ribs are sort of like compressy. I don't want that. This is the opposite of extension. Utthita, right? So how do I overcome that? With my top ribs, now I'm going to use my hand for demonstration, but you're not really going to use your hand. These ribs go down, and these ribs go out, down and out, so that I have a length on the bottom, length on top, instead of rainbowing on the top and compression on the bottom. Okay? So the ribs come down, and this chest moves forward to lengthen. Where's this arm? Vertical. Now, as I rotate open, I can go again past that point of all the way vertical, but make sure the movement of the chest open is actually coming from the chest, not from your arm. A lot of people just sort of throw their arm back, and this arm is like, what? Okay, so I'm up. My spine is long in all directions. So flat here, extended here, and the lengthening here. In a perfect world, my gaze is up to my thumb in this pose. Now when I come out, my preferred exit is actually through Warrior 2 to give like the leg, like that counter balance, and then I can come all the way out. Okay, let's try it on the other side. Again, this pose, because you've got two straight legs, rooted and pulling long. You've got your spine fully extended, and you've got your arms fully extended. It's a lot of extension. It's a lot of stretch in one pose. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to just go in the other direction. My left foot turns out. So I'm going to just adjust a little bit so I'm in the heel to heel position. Again, that hip's a little high. I pull. You see how I'm not just leaning forward like I'm a little teapot. I am a little teapot, short and stout. Now, if you think that kids' songs are silly, moving like a 3-year-old is also silly if you actually want to stretch. So to get that comprehensive stretch, as my hip goes back, my arm goes forward, I extend. So again, I'm not going down because I don't want this roundness in the ribs. I'm extending. Extend, extend, extend. Once I find full extension, it's hand to the outside, right? Wrist is under the shoulder, and I open my chest to take The gaze up, my spine long, right? Top ribs down, bottom ribs extending, and my gaze shifts up towards my thumb. Both heels are pressing strongly into the floor, and when I'm ready to come out, I like to come out through Warrior Two. Bada boom, bada bing, gotta love Utthita Trikonasana. You heard it here first, guys. Utthita Extended Trikonasana. It's the actual name of this pose. Hey, don't forget, by the way, I've got a Patreon page, and I super appreciate my patrons. And if you want full-length classes from me, I have hundreds of them, each one completely unique. From the beginneriest beginner poses to the most advanced practices you'll find just about anywhere. You can find that on my Vimeo channels. Links are in the description. This is Shana Meyerson with YogaAthletica in Los Angeles, California. Wishing you an amazing day.